Alright folks, welcome back. So for this video, we'll go through the full stats of the Aufklärungspanzer Panther as well as the Aufklärungspanzer Panther. Now technically, those two names are for the same exact vehicle, but one is at tier 7 and one is at tier 8. They share the same vehicle model, the canvas, the ladder thingy, but the stats are obviously different. And spoiler, the stats for the tier 8 is a lot better than the tier 7. However, they only changed the hidden status of the tier 7 with the release of patch 1.12. So we're likely going to see the tier 7 in Black Market, but it is pretty much confirmed based on the JPEG that we're likely going to see this vehicle. Even though the vehicle model is the same for tier 7 and tier 8, so you cannot tell which tier. So we have to go through all the stats just so you can see if it's worthwhile. For nostalgia purpose mostly, but so we'll start off with the tier 7. It is called the Aufklärungspanzer Panther, but it is practically a Panther chassis with the VK2001's turret. That's the 2001, even though they say it as a 1602's Leopard turret. It's not the tier 5 mini Leopard, because here is the original smaller turret with the machine gun. You can also put the Mauser machine gun on this vehicle way back when, before the change to all the light tanks, but yeah, you could put two turrets on this vehicle. This one's the machine gun one. So that has been a while. That was a while ago, but it is the 75mm, not the Mauser machine gun. The turret description is kind of wrong in my opinion, but whatever. So crew of 5. So sometimes you need a radio operator for if you're training the middle tiers. So if you're training like the HWKs, like the 13s or SP1Cs, they don't have a radio operator to go with the actual crew. So let's take a look at the light tanks for the Germans. So HWK-12, you're missing a loader as well as radio operator. Same goes with the SP1C. If you move up to the tier 9s, they have the same loadout as the HWK-30 with the RU-251 and then the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, but you're missing a radio operator or a loader at the same time, so you're likely having one from the looks and one from like somewhere. Where the hell do you get a radio operator? Like lower tier, practically any of the lower tiers. So yeah, your brothers in arms will not fit whatsoever, but it's the awful Panther. So let's take a look at the firepower of this thing. But it is the 75. We'll make more credits. So 157mm of pin, which is above average for tier 7, but alpha is average-ish. DPM is only 1600. Wonky, but 0.32 accuracy, 1.5 seconds of aim time, very good handling, and 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 elevation, traversive 46 degrees. Let's see the dispersion just so we can make sure if it's good or not. But 0.14 while moving the vehicle and 0.08 while turret traversing. It's not the best, so you will miss shots here or there while moving. And this vehicle, it's a sniping 75, but you don't do that much damage. And you will see tier 9s though, so yeah, I don't know. It's debatable of a gun, and the DPM's low too, so you're not packing a punch, and you will be outspotted with the likes of cars running around, and it's a big target. It is a Panther chassis after all, and Panthers are not exactly a small medium tank. So alright, survivability. It has the Panther chassis, so 85mm at the hull front, 50 at the hull sides, and 50 for the turret front. So sometimes you ram stuff like other light tanks with this vehicle, if you can catch up. Now, even though it's 85, it's obviously not the best, so not even close. You'll penetrate yourself with 157mm of pin, so armor wise it's still non-existent. 85 is the same as 50 or 30 in this case. So, I mean, it's a little bit better against high explosives, but that's practically it. So armor, non-existent. So let's take a look at the mobility. Only 22.3 horsepower per ton ratio, top speed of 55, reverse of 22. Obviously, I would recommend a turbocharger to help out with the top speed, but that is kind of low for our light tank, quote unquote. So it does weigh a lot for our light tank, quote unquote, but traverse decent for a medium, slow for a light tank. So obviously, this is a slower light tank. It's a medium, and most of the tier 7 lights usually have about 25 horsepower per ton ratio, or at least 60 kilometers per hour top speed, 65 or so. So you will be a little bit slower to the party, but obviously this is better for like city, and you have your terrain resistance of 0.77, so a lot better in harder terrains like gravel or pavement, but carries a lot of ammo, 110, it's a lot. But in all aspect of a tier 7 scout, this is practically a medium tank, especially the camo. It's a medium tank's camo. It is better than a Panther, I think, but that's not saying much. So about 12. 12% stationary camo bonus. It's not a lot. And the view range is 380. So how would I rate this vehicle if I was actually going to buy it from Black Market? Let's do some comparisons. So let's remove this one for now, and let's put up some tier 7 lights. Let's put up, like, obviously if you're going to compare this thing to the AMX 1357, it would not happen. Let's do the car just in case, and let's do the Type 62 for funds. So I have the Type 62. Let's remove all the gadgets. So as you can see, penetration is above average, but this thing has better accuracy than all of them, better aim time, better gun depression and elevation, and more health. So obviously more health to go through, but in terms of like view range and stuff, yeah, it's a little bit lower than the AMX 1357 and the Type 62. Obviously the camo doesn't compare, so no camo. But top speed also cannot compare. So 61 and 70 for the car, 60 for the Type 62. So this thing has the weight. It weighs a lot. It has the firepower in terms of the penetration, the gun handling, but it's practically a medium tank. So practically, how much would I rate this thing in the current meta of cars? And this will still see tier 9s and tier 8s. So this will still see the EBR 75mm at tier 8. So, for nostalgia purpose, it's not even going to be that fast too. So I would give it like a 7, 6.5. I'm not leaning towards the OPness of the speed. It's not that fast. If it has like 40 horsepower per ton ratio with like 70 kilometers per hour top speed, that might be different. It might compete, but the role of the active scout has already been taken by cars. This thing is more like a medium tank. We could compare it to a medium if you want. So let's compare it to the actual Panther or something. But tier 7 medium. Let's put a Panther. Let's put a VK3002D. 75mm guns for a Panther M10. Can I use my Panther M10? It has equipments. Remove all of those. For top configuration. So as a medium tank, yeah, it doesn't have as much pen as obviously the Panther, but the pen is about the same as the Panther M10 and the VK3002D. Why the hell is the pen on this thing so low? Is it like a 220 alpha. I never had this thing. I skipped over it, but it's an 88. Oh, why would you use the 88? Use the 105 derp gun. Well, it has an 88. I never played it. I skipped it by playing the light tanks to the leopard tree, but interesting. It has an 88mm. Obviously, the pen is about the same as the 88mm, the short barrel 88 L36 or something, if I remember correctly. Traverse is about the same as a medium tank. Panther M10 has preferential matchmaking. It does not count. DPM wise, it doesn't compare to the DPM of mediums. Better aim time. Accuracy is about the same. Armor is about the same. Weighs a little bit less because of the smaller turret size, but horsepower per turn ratio is better. Not much, but still better. Top speed is the same as a medium. Camo is the same as a medium. View range is the same as a medium. So it's a medium tank, posing as a light tank, as always. But I would expect this thing to have more horsepower per turn ratio in today's meta, just so it can compete. So overall, 6.5 out of 10. It's a medium tank, posing as a light tank. But you will miss a radio operator, as well as bird in the arms for the loader, if you don't have the RU-251 or the Rheinmetall Panzer Wagon at tier 10. So let's take a look at the tier 8 now, because that one's a little bit more interesting. The stats obviously a lot better than the tier 7. The tier 8 version is called the Aufklärungspanzer Panther 5. There it is. So with the tier 8 version, it is still the same 5-man crew loadout, still the same 75mm. They changed the turret name, they changed the engine and the track name, but whatever. So let's take a look, but still the same description as well. Same hull armor, so no need to talk about that, but 221mm of pen. I think this is the APCR round for default. Alpha is also better. DPM, a lot better. 2100. Quick, very quick aim time, very good accuracy, 0.29, 1.44 seconds of aim time. That's great. 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 elevation, faster traverse for the turret, and faster reloading, obviously. So this gun is a lot better for a tier 8. It's actually pretty good. Reminds me of the pre-introduction of tier 10 light tanks at tier 8's penetration. So this is a pretty good pen, but same hull armor, same turret armor, so no need to talk about the armor. Mobility wise, it has about 28.75 horsepower per turn ratio now, so it's a lot better than the 22. And top speed has been improved. Same goes with the turret, hull traverse and turret traverse, but it weighs a little bit more, surprisingly, for some reason. Alright. And camo is not as good. It's the same vehicle, has less camo than the tier 7 for some unknown reason, balance issues. So even worse than a Panther now, but and view range is 400, so buffed too. So for the tier 8 version, just because the gun is so much more powerful and just because it has more horsepower per turn ratio, this thing is actually not bad. So especially the pen. So I think it's is it an APCR round as default? Yep, APCR round as default. There are no gold shell for this vehicle. If it's the tier 8 version, only high explosive. So I'm doubting it going to be the tier 8 that's going to be released in Black Market. I think obviously the tier 7 will have the gold shell, but yeah, there are two versions. It should have a gold shell. It doesn't have a high explosive. Interesting. Really? I never played the Aufkl.Panther way back when, so did it never have a high explosive for the 75? Obviously you could get the machine gun, but never have a high explosive for the 75. That's interesting. So for the tier 8, the DPM is great, the accuracy is great, the aim time is pretty good, penetration is the best, 221. You cannot even get that for medium tanks, let alone light tanks. But let's take a look at the hidden stats for the tier 8 version. So 0.13 while moving is not bad. 75 ammo count. It's less than the 110 for some reason. They changed it, but slightly better. Terrain resistance, not much. A small hair of it. But otherwise, it doesn't have gold shell for this vehicle. So it just fires all gold shell with less credit cost. Alright. But interesting. It doesn't have high explosive round for the tier 7. So tier 7 Aufklärungspanzer Panther. Actually the same terrain resistance. Never mind. I messed that up. There's no high explosive. It's only 205 for the gold shell. Oh, DPM is obviously a lot worse. Tier 8. Let's compare it with some tier 8 light tanks just so you can see the difference in the values. Let's put the Black Bulldog. Let's put that's not even in the game. Let's might as well. Bulldog. And let's put that just so you can see the crew training. Change the loadout. So obviously the penetration is the best. 221. You cannot even get that on some medium tanks. So, ooh, that is. Well, Alpha is all the same compared to most of the lower caliber 75s, but DPM wise, doesn't compare with the Chinese Bulldog, but it's better than the ELC EVN. It has one of the worst DPM for the ELC. Accuracy is the best. Aim time is on par for the best, so it's still on par with the Black Bulldog or Chinese Bulldog, but 10 degrees gun depression. Traverse is slow for the turret, but not that slow. Does have still the armor compared to other light tanks, obviously. Health is not the same, so I would expect this thing to have like 1300 health or 1500 health, but it doesn't. It weighs more, obviously. And horsepower per ton ratio is good, but it's on par, so it's not like 22. 22 is a little bit low. And 60 is still slow for the kilometers per hour top speed, but it's better than 55. Also, the camo sucks. The camo is just not good whatsoever. Traverse for the hull is on average with the ELC EVN, not as comparable to the Bulldogs or the HWK30. And view range is not bad. It's not as good as the Black Bulldog or even the HWK30, but it's better than the Chinese Bulldog or the ELC EVN. So the tier 8 is a lot better. It has a distinguishing feature of the good penetration. So you can actually snipe with it with the accuracy and the aim time. So with the tier 8, I would actually give it like a 7.75 out of 10, not a 6.5. It has one distinguishing feature, whereas the tier 7 doesn't have anything going for it. So the tier 7 has like what? The health? The weight? That doesn't matter. Once you get spotted with a large ass chassis and profile, you get shot at, right? So where the hell is the Aufkl.Panther and the Aufkl.Pz.V? I don't know. How much would you pay for a nostalgia value? So for the nostalgia, maybe 6 mil, 5 mil. It's not that good of a tank though. It's just collector's value, if you will. But if it was the tier 8, yeah, this is obviously 8 mil, or not 8 mil. 6 mil is still pretty good for the tier 8. 6 mil is kind of high for the tier 7. It's like 4 mil or like 3 mil for the tier 7. For gold, shit. 3,000 gold for the tier 7. For the tier 8, maybe 5,000. Usual tier 8 light tanks have about 6,000 gold cost or 5,000 gold cost, but I wouldn't pay more than 8,000 for this thing in terms of gold price. I wouldn't pay more than like 3,000. I wouldn't even pay like 2,000 gold for the tier 7. Tier 7 is so lackluster in a sense. Well, there you go, folks. The Aufkl.Panther. Aufkl.Panther 5 as well, but whichever version it is, try to make up your mind before the black market comes out. So you have the grace period, as well as hopefully it's not tonight. So hopefully this video will go up before this stuff comes out. But I was surprised. I was really surprised they're offering the Qilin, whatever you how to pronounce it, for 15 million credit bid. So it's not a Type 59 gold. If it was a Type 59 gold for 15 million credit bid, this thing will go up to like 100 million credits, no problem. But it's a normal tech tree tank. You can buy the WZ-111-5A. It's the same thing. This thing doesn't have the better alpha as it had in 1.11. So the patch changed it to the same stats as a 5A. There is no specialty. The only difference is the skin and the special animation when you fire the gun, with the eyes light up and the fire breathing, whatever. But most of the time you're looking down the gunner sights, and that doesn't who the hell cares? So is it worth it to spend like 30 million auction bid just so you can get a skin for the WZ-5A? Now obviously you can train other crews like a 110 or a 1-4, but yeah, it's not a premium, it's a special crew trainer. But would you pay, let's say, 20 million for M60? Not really. Not really. So there you go, folks. The Aufkl.Panther and the Aufkl.Panzer V, whichever version going to come out in black market. Hopefully that clears a lot of the stuff up in terms of stats. I don't think in the meta of light tanks, especially cars, will these vehicles do that well. The Aufkl.Panzer V at tier 8 might, just because the penetration of the gun. Downside is there are no gold shell, so you will still struggle against like very heavily armored, or even sometimes medium tank with a lot of armor. So 221mm pen is good, but you get no actual gold shell. You still get high explosive. The tier 7 doesn't get high explosive for some reason. I don't know. Never played it way back when. Don't know if it had a high explosive problem at tier 7 back then, so who the hell knows. But sometimes people use the Mauser machine gun just for funs, so we'll see. But thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys make up your mind about this vehicle. I'm probably not getting it. I'm probably buying the IS-2 Berlin just because I never bought it before. I never actually spent that real money on an IS-2 Berlin. It's an IS-2 with a skin, but the Russians never had an IS-2 exactly. They had an IS-1 with an IS-2's turret, but that's a small hybrid, I guess. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace.